All right, everybody. Well, I think we'll go ahead and kick this session off so we can keep our time down to a minimum and not tie up everybody's evening. So welcome first off to joint presentation from Montana State Fire Chiefs, Montana State Fire Wardens, and DNRC about kind of where we're at in our wildland fire season. One thing we'd ask is if everybody can remember, if you're not speaking, stay on mute so the feedback doesn't come across. We'll try to do some opportunities for some questions and answers after the presentation a little bit. And feel free, if you got questions, type them in the chat, or we'll get to them in a little bit. So to start off with, for everybody, I'll introduce myself, Rich Cowger. I'm the chairman of the Montana State Fire Chiefs Association, the fire chief in Columbus. And what we wanted to do, we started a process last year during the fire season to kind of try and keep everybody up to date on where we were at currently in our situation across the Northern Rockies. And in particular, last year, it was because we started the fire season early. The severity was kind of off the charts to what we'd normally seen, and our resources available to help out were really kind of at a drawdown. We're not quite there yet, but remember, in Montana, our normal fire season didn't typically start until about now. So with that in mind, we thought Corey from DNRC brought it up, probably it'd be a good thing to go ahead and touch base with folks, reach out, let them know where we're at, and start this process a little earlier, and we can leave it up to the crowd once we get through the process a little bit to see how often we want to meet again, or if we want to as we go along. So again, Rich Cowger, chairman of the state chiefs. We'll have with us Corey Callan from DNRC. We'll do a little bit of the presentation. Heath Gerber, training officer from DNRC, will provide us some wildland training updates. Patrick Longergan, who is the president of the Montana Fire Wardens Association, will give us a little bit of information as well. He's also a NWCG board member. So let me try that again. He's a Northern Rockies board member, not NWCG. Patrick got a promotion and he didn't even know it. So having said that, let's start off with kind of where we're at in the Northern Rockies. Where are we at with our fire season? Well, as most of you know, it seems like in a lot of our areas, we are right there. Just nothing's happened quite yet, unless you're in the Flathead area and then you've seen some activity. But by and large, across the Northern Rockies, we're at what we consider an average fire season, maybe even a little bit below. So far, we're seeing a little bit of moisture in various places come across the state. We just haven't seen the ignitions, and we sure haven't seen the lightning yet. I think that could change as we go through the weekend with the forecast that we've got going on. So what does that mean? Really, on a big scale, we're at preparedness level 3, not only in the Northern Rockies, but across the country. So there is some activity. They are drawing some resources, but by and large, where we were at last year is completely different than what we are right now. Team wise, so there's plenty of resources, engines available, aerial support, not a lot of big fires going on across the country that are drawing those resources. A few that are tapping some items, but by and large, there's plenty of stuff available, provided we start getting big fires, you're the first ones in line, kind of thing. From a Northern Rockies standpoint for help coming in, I know DNRC at their level is doing some severity stuff across the state, various locations in various different formats. Team wise, there's 2 type 2 teams available right now within the geographic area, available and ready to come help if need be, as well as 2 type 1 teams. There's only 1 type 2 team assigned, well, excuse me, 2. The Wildfire use team, Joe Sampson's team's currently on, I believe it's the Hog Trough fire, And then John Thompson's type 2 team is currently on the Elmo 2 fire. Both of those are scheduled to transition out this weekend. So from again, from that Northern Rockies standpoint, things are actually at a dull roar at the moment. I think as we go through our presentation, the thing to keep in mind is we all know that can change drastically quickly. And a lot of our seasons, fire seasons, we've seen that where we can go from 0 to 60, not have any resources, not have any teams available. And how do we prepare ourselves for those cases when that might be the case? So that's a quick introduction, quick situational awareness of where we stand overall in the Northern Rockies. And with that, I will turn it over to Corey, who will talk a little bit about DNRC mobilization and incident business process reminders. Corey, take it away, sir.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate the introduction there, and happy to be here tonight. For folks that don't know, in Montana, we're pretty fortunate and well coordinated with our local government partners. And we have what's known as the Wildland Committee that's made up of representatives from state chiefs, Montana County Fire Wardens, and DNRC. And we do get together monthly to kind of hash through issues as they arise in regards to wildland fire in Montana and really across the country. And we're pretty fortunate in those relationships, and it's a good opportunity, even if there aren't issues, for us to get together and check in on one another throughout the course of the year. So if folks ever have issues, that's a good avenue to bring some of that up, and we certainly can help address things that are coming up. And then one thing I'll add to Rich's presentation, yesterday in the last 24 hours in the kind of Pacific Northwest, I think they're up to 94 new fire starts in that area in the last 24 hours or so, and that's that same kind of wave of lightning that's headed our way. So those folks have been kind of sitting warm and hot over there as well, but and I think we're about to probably turn a corner in the fire season in the Northern Rockies and in Montana, and a good opportunity tonight to just kind of check in on everybody and go from there. So I'm going to give a little bit of an update from the DNRC fire program, kind of specific to a few things, just a few reminders on some fire business stuff, and then touch on that local government critical mission task force that we talked about last year and utilized a couple times rather successfully. So before I dive into some of that, just want to remind folks of the tremendous resource that we've been able to put together here in Montana, and that's the mtfireinfo.org website. A great collection of resources for use by both the public, the media, and fire jurisdictions across the state, to include information on fire restrictions, current fire information as we have it. There's a ton of fire prevention resources on there as you start to see different levels of either campfires or equipment fires. There's some resources there that you can grab and run with and share within your jurisdictions, as well as some really great stuff that our shop and our partners have put together in regards to wildfire preparedness, and some good stuff to share with folks in your counties and your communities on how they could prepare their home, prepare for evacuations, and even as far as being wildfire smoke ready, preparing for the smoke that's likely to inundate us over the next couple of weeks, particularly as stuff catches on fire to our west, upwind of us. So okay, as most folks know, we have a great partnership in Montana between the counties and DNRC through our county co-op program. It's really been the backbone of how initial attack is provided. Local government provides the primary initial attack across the state, and we work together really well. And we've had a really successful year so far. I think we're just under 1,100 fires reported for the year in Montana, and only about 54,000 acres. So well behind where we were back in 2021, thankfully, given the nice, cool, wet spring that we had. But we are right where we should be for what would be considered a normal year. That cool, wet spring has allowed us in the Northern Rockies and in Montana to actually return the favor to some of our partners and neighbors across the state. So where we've been the recipient of help from outside of Montana for the last couple of years, starting early on this spring, we were able to export some local government resources to other parts of the country experiencing critical fire seasons. And help those folks out. And we still do have some resources committed outside of Montana, but they're slowly working their way back and will be available to us. A big thanks to those departments that make those resources available and do go help other states. You know, we've committed resources to Alaska, California, Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, a lot of states across the West that have been still experiencing drought conditions and have had a prolonged fire season so far to date. So again, appreciate the partnership that we have between DNRC and local government and look forward to continuing that as we go. As a reminder, the business of fires is a pretty big deal, and a lot of departments play in that realm, exporting resources or helping their neighbors and contracting with the DNRC. And I just want to point to a couple things and resources in case you'd like to find them. But if you just Google DNRC Fire Business, it'll take you to our Fire Business page. And there's a couple tabs there that you can kind of sort through and get access to all the forms and information you may need in regards to how we mobilize and utilize local government fire forces in Montana. Specifically, a couple documents to pay attention to and to refresh yourself with. One of which is we call the umbrella document, or the mobilization of local government fire forces document. It's got a picture of the umbrella on it, and that's the overarching playbook on how local government is mobilized in support of wildland fire. And that's available on the website, and I'll reference that a couple times tonight. In conjunction with that is what we refer to as Chapter 50, which is kind of the business book that goes along with that, the rates, standards, typing, some of those other things. But it's just good to refamiliarize yourself with that as we begin looking at probably greater mobilization of local government within Montana and the state. The other one that I'll just throw in there is Chapter 10, companion to Chapter 50, but that really deals with personnel and our emergency firefighters and the rates of folks that are paid there. So those are all available on the DNRC website. I encourage you to poke around there and take a look. And if you have questions, of course, you can reach out to me. I'll have my contact information here at the end of the presentation, but also reach out to your local DNRC office and they can help guide you through those processes. Hopefully at this point in the game, most of that's been taken care of. We've taken care of all that preseason, and we're not doing it in the heat of the battle right now, or right on the cusp of the meat of fire season. So just some other things there, the agreements that we do for the equipment, all those resources there, the forms needed to mobilize personnel, the emergency firefighter packets where the state hires the folks, the chief certification forms, all those pieces of paperwork that we really need to have in order if you're gonna kind of play in the big game. So couple reminders just to make the fire business thing go smoothly. All of this getting done preseason or soon would be preferred, and it'll help expedite the process if we're converting local government into paid status, which does happen on a pretty regular basis, or we're mobilizing you to help some neighbors. The big ones, your incident rental agreement with your equipment on there. If you're an option 3 hire department, a career staff department is, we refer to that as option 3 hiring, making sure those forms are up to date. And then the chief certification form, again, the forms that kind of identify your qualifications and your capabilities and the equipment you're authorized to operate in support of fire. We always recommend folks completing the shift tickets and CTRs just as good practice, whether they're in paid status or not. You never know when you're going to be converted to paid status, especially on a heavy local government mobilization incident that may become, FEMA eligible for state reimbursement, those kinds of things. So we encourage everybody to work through that. And then lastly, I mentioned this a couple times, but a good working relationship with your local DNRC hiring office. They'll be your main point of contact and can really help guide you through some of these things. Lastly, as a reminder, and we've hit on this a couple times already this spring and summer, but regardless of where local government fire resources are mobilized, whether it's for a Forest Service fire or BIA fire or whatnot, DNRC is the hiring and payment office for that local government equipment, in-state, out-of-state. We handle the bill for that, so all your paperwork has to come back to DNRC. The state of Montana pays that, and then we in turn bill those other federal agencies so that you're not stuck, or the local departments aren't stuck holding the bag on those resources. To help facilitate that, it's really important that when you demobilize off those fire incidents and return back to your home unit, your station, your county, that we get that paperwork turned back into your local DNRC office as soon as possible. You know, preference within 30 days and certainly no later than 60 days without some prior conversations. And that just helps the machine work more efficiently. You know, we get documentation submitted in time, and then we can make sure you get turned around and get paid in a prompt fashion. And as always, ask for help if you need it. So switching gears just a little bit, I want to talk about the local government critical mission task forces. Again, we've kind of had this option in place in the Northern Rockies and in Montana for a couple of years now. We formalized it a little bit more last year, just with the resource shortages. It was very well received by the incidents that did use it, and I think is a really neat tool for folks to consider, and really helps us maybe bridge the gap between local initial response, local capabilities, and the national resource ordering system when we can't always get resources that we need in a real quick, timely fashion. But the basics of it are, in times of critical need on a wildfire incident or something, we can DNRC can help assemble some task forces of resources based on incident needs, and then deploy those for very specific missions in a pretty short duration, really not to exceed 72 hours for incidents around Montana. And it worked really well last year. And again, we're just covering this so folks are aware of it, and if they want to participate, to let us know. So an example of how this might work, if we were to have a large wildfire incident that was making a pretty significant run toward a subdivision or structures, and the incident management team really couldn't gather up the resources, the engines or firefighters they needed to really manage that or respond effectively to that situation, we can make some calls and assemble some local government, rural fire department resources in task force configurations, and deploy them to help do structure protection for a defined period of time. But the beauty of this this kind of concept is that it is for that short window. It's not a full 14 or 21 day commitment. It's a quick surge capacity that helps the incident get over a hump until they can backfill and order other resources in, or it's a specific set of resources to help achieve a specific task. We did use it a few times last year, and used it rather successfully on the Robertson Draw Fire. That was really an instance of, it was early June. There weren't a ton of fire resources ready to go. And so we had to spool up and really rely on some local government and some counties to respond and help support that fire. On the Boulder 2700 fire up along Flathead Lake, the other side of Flathead Lake from the Elmo fire, we mobilized a couple task forces from some neighboring counties to pull off a pretty critical burnout operation up there. That was pretty successful. Same with Alder Christensen. Early September, resources really tough to come by, and moving some local government stuff over to that fire helped the incident be able to focus and shore up some sections of fire line so that they could focus on moving away from so much structure protection and focus on other areas of the fire. And then late in the year in December, we actually mobilized a strike team of structure fire protection engines to the West Wind fire in Denton, because we needed structure fire apparatus within the community of Denton there for that incident later in the year. But really did work well. Again, short duration, Those were organized and facilitated by DNRC and worked really well. Some key points about the Critical Mission Task Force. It is similar to, but does not replace and is not a substitute for mutual aid with local partners, including, the system we have through Montana Mutual Aid. So just because this avenue exists doesn't mean you can't still, page the neighboring county for a mutual aid task force, or page the all county response. So it's designed to help supplement when you've exhausted those kind of local resources and we're still needing to surge for a specific task. This next bullet's a pretty key one. It really has to be approved, ordered, and coordinated with DNRC. Since this mobilization would be a paid mobilization, DNRC's got to be involved in that as the hiring, contracting, and payment entity. So if a local chief is calling and ordering strike teams, there's going to be a little bit of a discussion there, whether that's in paid status or that's more of a mutual aid system. So resources will remain under the control of state and local jurisdictions. They'll be demobbed upon the conclusion of their task. If folks are interested in this, stay in contact with your local hiring office and maintain your availability as you normally do. Don't be flooding them with phone calls. This is kind of a as needed call that we'll make. And as of right now, likely the request to fill a task force, if we get a request for these, we're going to go hit the counties that have existing contracts and agreements already on file with DNRC, because that just helps facilitate movement of resources a little bit quicker. That doesn't mean we would mobilize somebody or some entity that doesn't have an existing contract. It's just a little bit of extra paperwork for us to make sure that stuff's in place to get them paid. So don't be offended if we're mobilizing this task force and we maybe skip over your county and move to the next county just because the paperwork's already in order to do that, and maybe some incentive to make sure we have paperwork in order. So I'm just about done here. A couple of reminders from us. As I said, the state's the mobilization and payment lead for local government fire. This works really well. Just help work together with one another to make sure folks are getting paid and the documentation's getting to where it needs to be. Use those resources on the DNRC Fire Business website, the umbrella guide and the chapter 50. Stay connected with your local offices, particularly on days of periods of critical fire weather, which we're kind of headed into the meat of the season right now. So checking in on a regular basis there to know what the situations are and how you can support and kind of what the response plans may be. Make sure you're getting your paperwork. If you go out on an incident that's in paid status, get your paperwork into your local hiring office. And then really what this call is all about is help out your neighbors. Talk about mutual aid now before the fire starts and the smoke's in the air. Make a plan. This is a good time to look at automatic alarms and mutual aid responses and all countywide pages, those kinds of things. Iron that stuff out now as we get into the core dry part of the summer. And just be prepared, for fires to escalate, and then, recognize when situations are escalating beyond your local capability. Call for help early. We can always turn it around. But we'd rather get folks moving early on and take care of business or get turned around and not have to deal with an escalating fire that's now beyond our control because we waited too late to call. So there's my contact info there. Feel free to reach out or to your local office. Happy to help navigate any local government conversations or issues that we have. And with that, thanks for the attention tonight. And if there's any questions, we'll hit you up at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Corey. Good timely reminders, especially while things are still relatively quiet, to be able to get some of those things in place. One of the things that we wanted to talk a little bit about tonight is what's it look like if you're fortunate or unfortunate enough to have to host a team. So what happens when the incident and one of Corey's last bullet points there was, call for help quickly. you know, and try to recognize that when we're completely behind the 8 ball. So first off, what does that look like to call a team? Well, typically if you're going to have a fire, a big event, you know, probably our county fire wardens or state DNRCs already going to be kind of monitoring what's going on, or our federal partners for a lot of our state. It could be very well the Forest Service. It's a joint fire where our protection areas are buttoned up against each other, or BLM. And so there's probably going to be some folks that are watching in the system already for what that looks like. But from us, from a local government standpoint, usually our direct contacts are going to be to DNRC to start requesting that help. Well, what's that additional help look like? In our systems, there's basically 3 classifications of teams. If we go the formalized teams, a type 3 team, type 2 team, and type 1 team, 1 being the most complex, 3 being the most nimble and agile and able to react quickly. And in the state of Montana, we are fortunate enough to have the DNRC CAT team. That's probably the most commonly known. We do also have the Southwest Incident Management Team out of the Missoula area that's being utilized a bit more on wildland fires. There's a couple of the federal systems, the Greater Yellowstone area type 3 team that we have available. And those teams are really designed to be able to come in, and it may not be the full support, the full city type thing that we see with the type 1s and type 2s, but maybe they're coming in just to give us some command help, some logistical support, finance, or just some advisement on where we go from there. Type 2 team obviously is going to come in a little bit heavier, typically running 50 to 60 people. That's where we'll start getting the incident command, the big incident command post set up, the caters. I mean, and the type 3 is all capable of doing this as well. If the CAT teams roll in, that's going to look like a miniature type 2. And sometimes they're even out better supplied than the type 2 teams are when they roll in. And then of course, type 1 is that more complex. Type 2 and type 1 teams are going to be more probably geared towards a lot of your partnerships where it's federal, state, and local, private, local protection areas kind of thing. Thing to keep in mind with a lot of these teams, especially the 2s and the 1s, they're not quick. We try to be, especially, you know, some of the teams have a lot more local government resources on it, have people in the areas that we can get maybe operations people or resources such as that into your area quickly to help download what's going on. But the reality is that if you have an incident, you may get the CAT team relatively quick, probably within 24 hours, give or take a little bit, and they can get up and running. A type 2 team is probably at a bare minimum is going to be 24 hours to get there, probably 72 hours close to before they're fully operational. And a type 1 team is going to mirror that pretty closely. And so sometimes when we ask for help and we get frustrated because it seems like it takes a lot of time to roll this stuff in and set it up. Well, unfortunately it does. And we try to minimize that as much as possible with the teams rolling in, but it's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people coming from different areas within our geographic area, and in some cases even people coming from out of state that have to get in and get settled in. So just keep those things in mind, and that, you know, go back to Corey's comment, call early if you think you're going to need help. That process takes a while to get it in motion, so it isn't going to hurt. They can usually stop it if the tide changes, but if it doesn't, that way the orders are being placed, things are going in there. Of course, the reason for calling a team is to create an organization that has the ability to support us at the local level. Think about that. All of us still have coverage areas that we have to protect. We still have local jurisdictional stuff, whether it be EMS, car fires, structure fires, whatever it is. And the purpose for that team in there, the team is to come in and take that particular problem off of our plate at a local level and help make us whole and complete so we can carry out our normal functions again. What that doesn't mean, though, is that we don't have some responsibility to interact with that team. If we have the mindset that that team comes in and takes over and we're not part of it, we're setting ourselves up for scenarios where we can create conflict, maybe unintentional. But the reality is that team wants local input onto how to manage these situations. So a team typically carries a liaison officer with it. That liaison officer's job really is to try and coordinate locally as much as possible, to try and get everybody's concerns in there. Now, having said that, usually when a team comes in and they do their in-briefing, it's typically the hosting agency. So usually the state or one of our federal partners that hosts that in briefing. And they do a pretty good job of making sure that we know as an incoming team what their priorities are. Sometimes the local jurisdictions get left out of that process. So if you're tied in and can keep tied in with your DNRC counterparts or your connections there, and make sure you're part of that in brief, so that if you've got local political concerns or high risk concerns or high value concerns to your local districts, that can get, that kind of information can get passed on to that team early on. Okay. And as a local fire chief, you know, every incident begins locally and ends locally. And so from a team standpoint, we want you involved in what our processes look like as a team that comes in to help you. Now, having said that, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to be roses and go perfect all the time, because there sometimes are competing priorities. But keep in mind that you should be, as a local fire chief, involved in that. Now, that can be overwhelming, right? Because you'll run into a team environment. There's a whole bunch of new people that come in. You got a whole section of operations folks, finance folks. It can be easy as a local fire chief to feel either intimidated or run over the top of. And that's not the intent. But a team's designed to come in there, hit the ground, start putting the pieces together, and then start working on the problem. And so it's a two-way street. The team needs to reach out to everybody locally as much as possible. And at the same time, you locally need to be able to be engaged. Does that mean that you have to be there for every meeting or be there from the beginning of the incident till the closeout of the incident with the team? No. Again, the design of the team is to take this problem off your plate and let you get back to normal life. But we do want you engaged, so we know what your priorities are, so you understand what the plans look like and how we can make those tie in together to hopefully come away with a successful outcome. One of the things that we've said on our team very often, and we keep stressing to our team members, is that, you know, at the end of the day, when the fire's done, you know, that's a success. If we get the fire put out and we move on to the next one, that's a success. However, the relationships that we leave or that we destroy as a team really truly make the success of the incident. So if we walk out of there and everybody around that area has a bad taste in their mouths about how this team performed or how they functioned, or they didn't include us and this and that and on down the line, then that wasn't a very successful incident. But it's a two-way street, right? So the team has to be engaged as well as the local jurisdiction has to be engaged. Okay. And honestly speaking, sometimes, especially from a lot of our teams are made up of predominantly federal folks. They're used to dealing at a federal level system that has a certain set of protocols and procedures that go along with that. And sometimes trying to mix in local government can be a challenge, because we don't operate necessarily the same way. And that's why it's beautiful to have the DNRC there with us by our side, is because they can tend to help mesh those two different ways of operating, you know. So at times we can find fault with a team to say, well, they didn't do this, or they didn't do that, or they didn't include it. Well, in some cases they can't. But that's where DNRC becomes that liaison between local government and some of our federal partners to make sure that all the voices are getting heard, and we can utilize folks in them as appropriately as we can during that kind of an incident. So we just wanted to throw that out there. You know, it again can be very overwhelming to host a team. And at the same time, it can develop some friendships and relationships that go on well after the incident, and can be a very successful operation, rewarding operation to be part of that thing. So it's sometimes a lot on us of how we make that. If we have a mindset that the team's not on our side and they're not working for us and we don't do something to fix that, then that can be as much on us locally as it can might be with the team. Some very talented, very skilled people that come along with these processes, and at the same time, some very arrogant and people that sometimes won't listen. So there's both sides of it. We understand that. We're trying to work through that and make sure that teams understand the local impact that they make. So again, feel free to reach out at any point in time in the comments. Both Patrick, myself, and Corey, all three of us are on teams. Corey's on the CAT team. Patrick has been on a type 2 team and is currently deputy IC on the CAT team, and myself, I'm on one of the type 2 incident management teams. So feel free to reach out at some point. We'll wait on the I see there's a raised hand, but we'll wait until after we get done with the presentation, and then we'll try to get to folks. But all right, with that said, Heath Gerber, you want to talk about some of the training opportunities that we got available?
Yeah, let me get things fired up here. Looks like I had it. All right, everybody should have DNRC Natural Resources, basically the front-facing page to the DNRC. Okay, so while we talk about the current fire year that we're in, conversations are ongoing, and this is kind of the cycle of things to come. The preparations for our next upcoming training season and training that next generation to take over whenever this fire season ends, fire year ends, and we're moving into those preparations. Just wanted to take a few minutes and chat about the DNRC training, the pages, how to access that stuff, and then talk about a bit about the process of requesting training that may come about from either lessons learned or some experience that you gained, maybe a person in your department or your organization's ready to move to the next level and they're seeking some additional training to advance their own career. So this is our front-facing page that you see here. The best way to get to the Fire Protection Bureau is in the divisions. Corey alluded to this in the Chapter 50 stuff, but I'll speak specifically to training. Come down here to forestry. Next, you hit the fire protection side. And then down here on the left, you see the training tab. So you click in the training tab. This is the training side as it relates to anything related to training. One of the pieces that we've had some success pointing folks to is our DNRC training calendar, and that's listed actually a couple times over here. So you can see a DNRC training calendar here or the incident management training calendar there. We're in the process of honing this product and streamlining some of the documents that we have in there. So you may see some additions, corrections, or other information show up there. So check back often, especially during training season. So talking specifically about the training calendar, we don't have anything active going on now, so it will look mighty blank if I were to show you August of 22. But if we click into the DNRC training calendar, there it is. This is where you would go to get information. So this is a front-facing website that we fill in on the back end for anything training related. So let me show you May of last year, or May of this year, actually, this previous May. So this is what the training calendar would look like. You can go month to month. This is typically populated a couple months in advance of the courses, sometimes even further out than that. But you could click on something like, hey, this Battle of the Rosebud Little Bighorn Staff Ride looks interesting. And you can find course information, the course coordinator information, maybe some pre-course, some prerequisites that might be required for you to take some training, or that you would need to meet to advance into the class. You know, and you can maybe even have an option to sign up. The big thing is there may be links to documents or links to forms that you will need to sign up for that. Please make sure that you work with your local land office to work through this process, as this class may not belong to them, but they can help facilitate getting you through there. As a for instance, if you look on the left hand side, the central land office, anything Helena, north and south, is all in red. Eastern land office, Miles City area, is all in green. Northwest and Kalispell is in orange. Southern land office would be in blue. So, if you know your area, you can look for those specific courses, but all DNRC training is open to any local government partner. There may be some logistical things that you would need to take care of yourself or facilitate through your local land office. But yeah, this is a really great resource. And I'm doing my level best to try and keep this as the great resource that it is. Unfortunately, they may take the ability to use this calendar away from us. So stay tuned. We have at least a provisional use to continue using this for another year, but it may look a bit different in the future, and talk to you next summer about this. So that's local government training. Anything 100 level, your basic DNRC class on up to IC3, we can offer that S300 course, maybe even a few above that, with just a general ask through the Northern Rockies Training Center. But the big thing here is work through your local training officer with the DNRC. There's 6 of them scattered across the state, and if you feel like you need a course to advance your career or members of your organization's career, let us know. Now is the time to start preparing for that stuff. If you ask us today to put on a class on Saturday, it's not likely going to happen, especially one that may be a large logistical or financial lift to be able to put on. So, just like in fire response, order early, order big, and we'll see what we can do. Above and beyond those levels of classes that are put on typically at the local level, the Northern Rockies Training Center puts out their yearly schedule, which is out now. The Northern Rockies schedule is out for 2023. Somebody give me a thumbs up if you've got the Northern Rockies training schedule there. Okay. So this is the Northern Rockies training schedule proposed for this year. If you happen to have access to the site, you won't find any dates or locations yet, as they're still working with their cadre internally and their course leads to work out some final details. The thing with the Northern Rockies Training Center is this training site is not your typical weekend, maybe Friday night, Saturday, and midday Sunday course. If you want and you take these courses and there's something of benefit for you here, you're going to need to make a commitment that is generally longer than a weekend. They're typically held Monday through Friday, occasionally over a weekend, not really. It's very few and far between if they're held over a weekend. And these are also kind of considered your, I guess, to go back to college days, your upper baccalaureate level classes. So if you have a really strong candidate to be a division group supervisor, or say someone in your county is really solid with putting paperwork together and making plans and organizing things and keeping time schedules, maybe you want them to have the planning section chief course, which could benefit your county in wildland fire and all hazards response. There's a planning section chief course here, but again, I go back, you're more than welcome to access this site. I believe you log in as a guest, but anytime you engage the Northern Rockies Training Center, it is a must that you also engage your local DNRC training officer or local DNRC office to get in here. Number one, there's typically a seat cost associated with this course. And two, there's back-end processes, which is why I'm having a conversation with you now, to get those seats allocated for folks so they know there's a need and they don't just arbitrarily cancel the class. So there's that. One of the last ones that I'll talk to you about is the Southwest Zone, which is very similar to Northern Rockies, but held through the University of Montana. Again, lots of classes offered here, typically virtually. So if you are in Ekalaka or Alzada and you want to take a class and you don't care that it's virtual, You can take these courses virtually. The cautionary tale here is there's also a fee associated with this, with the college being a for-profit entity. These are also some of the classes that may be offered through your local DNRC office. You didn't happen to get in one, here's an option here. The thing with this one is signing up for these classes, it's going to ask for a payment card before you can finalize your registration for the course. So again, I would just really encourage you to work through your local DNRC office and number one, share the need that you and your county or your jurisdiction may have. Work through that process. We have a bunch of avenues to get folks into training. And, unfortunately, I do think that we're fixing to turn a corner into fire season, but we can't stop preparing for the next one either. So with that, I'll turn back over the reins, and I appreciate everybody's time, and hopefully I'll see you in a course this fall and or next spring.
Thanks, Heath. Appreciate that information. Always good to keep that stuff in mind. Patrick from the Fire Wardens Association, you're up, buddy.
I am coming. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patrick Lonergan. I'm the president of the Montana County Fire Wardens Association. A couple things to add to the discussion we've already had. Rich talked about the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group and the fact that both the Fire Wardens Association and the Fire Chiefs Association have seats on that group. And we're the only local government representatives on that group looking out for local fire. Well, I shouldn't say looking out. I mean, DNRC is looking out for us, but we're the only local government reps that truly sit there to represent your interests and help support local government and your needs. And a key portion of that when we get into high fire activity is a multi-agency coordinating group, or the MAC group. And I'm sure you've heard that flown around at times, but it's when we get busy, that's the group that prioritizes incidents and allocates those scarce resources. And what I'll throw out to you is sometimes when you're looking at the macro scale and you're looking at all the Northern Rockies and all the incidents that are going on, it can be really hard to truly get a good grasp of what's going on everywhere. And I know that sometimes, when you're at the local level, you see what's happening in your backyard and the values at risk and everything that's going on. And it can be challenging to get that up, and you wonder, why is your incident not ranked higher? Or why are you not getting this scarce resource? And what I'd throw out to you is if you have questions about why other incidents are getting prioritized, or you think we're missing a critical piece of information about, your incident in your jurisdiction, or there are conflicts going on, be that with an incident management team or whatever it might be, reach out to Rich or myself and let us know. So we have that intel, maybe we can provide you some insight on why it is the way it is, or maybe there's something that we're not aware of and we can maybe help raise that to the MAC group. And I'd also throw out, let us know any issues that pop up during the year, especially if incident management teams, the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group, that is a primary function of ours, is to support and manage our type 2 and type 1 incident management team. So if there's issues going on, let us know. And if there's great accomplishments those teams do, let us know so we can talk about that. We can recognize, the incident commanders, the teams that are doing well. And if there's issues out there, we want to know that, because that's important for us to have well-functioning teams that can support our local jurisdictions when something happens. Moving on, the Fire Wardens Association, one of our big goals is situational awareness. And, we're a small association that represents the 56 county fire wardens in Montana. But our goal is to support all of the Montana Fire Service focusing on wildland fire and help you with your situational awareness. And we have two primary tools for that. The first tool I want to speak about is Situation Analyst Montana. So we have the SA Montana system. And if you have not looked at that, go to samontana.org. You can request an account. And that is a great tool to increase your situational awareness, figure out what's going on around you, get a feel of what's happening in an incident, or gather intel about what's going on. It brings a lot of different things. You can get a lot of different places, but all into one location. So you can see as soon as a interagency dispatch center creates an incident, it pops up real time. You can see the heat detection maps. You can see lightning maps, all sorts of boundaries and layers, more than you want to see. structure layers, parcel, ownership. It has values at risk tools, so you can circle an area and get a summarized report spit out that tells you how many houses are in that area that you defined, what the assessed value is, how many critical infrastructure pieces like railroads, highways, train tracks, power lines. So that can be a real great tool when you're, working with your partner agencies and you're trying to justify your incident to easily help identify some values at risk. So that's out there, samontana.org. You're more than willing to sign up for that and get access. It's open to any of our partners, and there's a lot more that can do. The other thing that we maintain is a pretty active mailing list. So you can sign up as a member of our association. You can also get a subscription, and we push a lot of information out year round, but trying to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to know about incidents that are taking place, mobilization of key resources, when incidents happen, knowing when policy changes are taking place, new guidance that comes out, all those big ticket items, you try and make sure that that's pushed out. So if you're looking for, enhancing your situational awareness of what's going on, you can go to mtfirewardens.org and you can get more information there on how you can become a member or get a subscription to receive that information. The other thing that I wanted to throw out is there's a lot happening in the wildfire world, the response world, but also in the wildfire mitigation. A lot of stuff going on with the infrastructure bill and other programs at the federal level coming down to the states and local government. And if you have some sort of wildfire mitigation program, hopefully all that stuff is on your radar screen. But I'd also throw out that if you're wanting to start a program or learn more about that, there's a lot taking place right now. The Community Wildfire Defense Grant, very, very large program coming out of the infrastructure bill. That stuff's on the street now. It just hit the street last week. Large chunks of money, a lot of competition for it, very short turnaround. So, look into that. Also, we're looking at just going into what's likely to be our main fire season here in Montana, but that'll be over soon enough and we'll be into winter and training season. And Heath talked about all the DNRC training programs that are out there. He talked about not waiting until the last minute to figure out what your needs are. There's also a lot of other programs going on, and there's a program that Rich actually hosts known as the Local Incident Management Development Grant. And that's really focused at enhancing incident management capabilities across the all hazard spectrum, but at the local government level. We have a lot of money available to support programs, and I'd encourage you to think about what your community might need. And that could be a formalized class. It could also be some sort of informal workshop to do whatever you think your community needs to enhance your capacity. And what I would ask is if you have a need, reach out to Rich, myself, to Corey, go through your DNRC training officers, but get it back up so we know and we can get those scheduled and let you know how you can fill out a formal application to request that support. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Rich.
Thanks, Patrick. You stole a bit of my thunder, but that's okay. We're good with that. One thing I'd throw out there is keep in mind with all this training that we're talking about, I can think in years past that a lot of folks were resistant to go to some of this training because they thought, well, I'm not interested in going out and going across the country on fires. I don't really want to be red carded or anything to that effect. And the reality is that's okay. We'd rather have you have this kind of training to strengthen your own local systems than worry about whether you're red carded to go across the state and fight fires in some different area or whatnot. And it's important, even at those different levels, to understand what a division supervisor does, understand what a planning section chief does, because as your incidents grow, all of that stuff comes into play. Is to figure out what a next operational period looks like. And again, it doesn't mean that just because you take one of these hosted trainings from DNRC or through the grant that we host that you have to go and get carded and certified at a certain level. What we want you to be able to do with that information is put it into practical use, most importantly at your local jurisdiction, to make sure that your system, as you know it, is stronger and more capable to handle those emergencies, be it wildland or all hazards, so that maybe you can hold off in having to get a team and can manage it a little bit more and locally yourselves. So we'll wrap this up. We want to leave a little bit of time for questions. Again, we appreciate everybody taking their time to be with us this evening. Feel free again to reach out. I didn't put my contact number on there, but a lot of folks have it. If you don't have it, you can look to the Montana State Fire Chief's website or contact Michael. She'll get that information out. And but to start off with, Todd, you've had your hand up patiently throughout our process here. So go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know that, use me. My name's Todd Devlin. I'm Perry County Commissioner, and I'm also the National Association of Counties Public Lands Steering Committee Chair. So, I mean, every time we meet, it's fire, 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 PILT SRS, fire, fire, fire. So if there's anything that you use me as a tool to get resolutions, presenters, whatever I need to do with my committee to help you guys out. I'm going to give you contact information, mtdevlin@gmail.com. My cell number is 406-852-0019. Use me if you want.
Thanks, Commissioner. We appreciate you being with us tonight. And that helps, and to carry that comment just a little bit further for folks, even at the national level. We've our own Sonia Gurman, who was the director for State Forester, has moved, changed from DNRC to BLM, but she sits on a presidential commission for wildland fire. And even for a lot of folks that remember the America Burning Report that came out from the National Fire Academy, and it was a congressional mandated committee. That's up for a revamp, and it's talking about the impacts of wildland fire as well. So there's a lot of activity going on at the national level about understanding and helping out and trying to figure out ways that we can manage that. But again, appreciate you being with us, Commissioner, and thanks for that offer to help out. We appreciate that.
You're most certainly welcome.
Any other questions out there? Somebody else can help me look. I'm not seeing any other hands popping up. All right. Well, if there's not, as always, again, feel free to contact any of us. We're happy to help out in any way, shape, or form. Like Patrick said, even if you're fortunate or unfortunate enough to host a team and you feel you're having some glitches, reach out to one of us. We can always run over and tag in with whoever the team is and see if we can work out those situations. They're really there to help. They mean well. Sometimes the systems don't make it feel that way, but everybody's on the same page and wanting to do the right thing. So we've almost tied you up for a full hour. We again appreciate your opportunity, or the opportunity you've been taken out of your time frame to be here. And if you feel value in it, please let us know. If the season starts heating up a little bit, we'll do it again, give you a current status of where we're at across the geographic area. And again, take time now to build the relationships with your neighbors, get that mutual aid in place, talk to each other, make sure you're workable with each other now before you really need each other. Again, thanks. Appreciate everybody being here. Take care.